All right, let's get into it because this one should be a hot button issue. Although I think the conversations have been flowing, the question is: are Star Wars fans too hard to please? And I think we know Frank's opinion on it. So, John, why don't you kick it off? I'm curious to hear what you think because I feel like you aren't sucked into the internet discussion as much as we probably are.
That's true. Yeah. I don't pay attention to what other people say. It just is white noise around me, so that's great. Except for when we talk here, then it's like, oh, really? People didn't like that? But yeah, I hear all the time that so many people didn't like Star Wars stuff. I'm like, you didn't like Star Wars stuff. Why are you watching Star Wars? Go away. Like, if you're not a fan, you're not a fan. But I think I do think Star Wars fans are way too critical and hard to please. But I think I have an idea of why also. So I think Star Wars is just cool enough to not be only in the geek wheelhouse. I think it is very mainstream for sci-fi. And so that bridges in the mainstream, non-sci-fi viewers to watch it. And then they start to realize like, oh, this has a lot of sci-fi principles and morality and stuff like that we don't like, or whatever other things they don't like about it. But it's like, well, yeah, it's right in line with Star Trek, but a lot of Star Wars fans wouldn't watch Star Trek because it's too nerdy for them. And it's like, well, okay, this is the same thing. We just, use energy swords and, it feels a little more medieval than Star Trek maybe. But yeah, I think it's just a little more mainstream, brings in a wider audience, but also disappoints some of them at the same time.
Yeah. That's an interesting take.
Yeah, I want to expand on what you're saying there, John. I think there's something there where also when they first watched or introduced her to Star Wars, they were kids. And so they were focusing on the lightsaber battles. It takes me back to X-Men as well. It's like, oh yeah, Wolverine is cool. But if you were old enough to understand the concepts, and we have a real problem with media literacy nowadays, where people don't understand how to really watch media and absorb the messaging and, that they don't seem to take away the morals and the principles that are being expounded here or explained here. And I just put out a whole article on Star Wars Day about how the original Star Wars was all about Vietnam and stuff like that. And so I think nowadays when they're seeing these principles that have been there since 1977 and they're seeing them today, they're like, well, it's woke. It's a problem. It's liberal. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's what Star Wars has always been. It's just now you are hearing from people that have an agenda to make sure that you don't like certain things first. Secondly, it suddenly doesn't match with what you think. Well, you've always been in Star Wars. You're just the Empire side. Or you've always been an X-Men. You're just the one yelling at them. You're not Wolverine.
You're the one trying to fix them. Yeah.
You're trying to cure them. So I think that's a problem too, is like as kids, you saw the lightsabers, you thought they were cool, and you just didn't know how to absorb it correctly. And now that you're an adult and you are learning how to absorb things correctly, you're starting to see, oh, the messaging was for me. I just didn't absorb it the right way. Maybe a problem.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm going to be a little bit on a soapbox here. I think
get on that soapbox.
Yeah, I think both of you did an amazing job explaining it. I'll start anecdotally. So going back to Ahsoka, I had an uncle. We're at a family party. If you're hearing this, uncle, you know who I'm talking. You know it's you. Okay. But he was like, oh yeah, I didn't watch Ahsoka. Like, oh, I just heard it's just terrible. It was like so woke. And I was like, oh, but did you watch it? Oh no, I wouldn't watch it. Exactly. I was like, oh well, how do you know it's bad then? Oh, I don't have to, whatever. It's like, okay, so there is already the online discourse or whatever the news that he's consuming or certain people are consuming already is telling him, you're not going to like this media because we're telling you not to like this kind of media. So for me, that already is a huge problem. And I think that's the thing with a lot of news in modern culture these days is like, if you follow a certain person or you follow a certain news network and they tell you don't like this, it's bad, it's wrong, you all of a sudden have to be on that idea or follow that idea because you're on that team. I don't personally like that. That's not how I try to roll myself. I just want to take a property at one piece at a time and decide if I like it or if I don't. And I will say, though, that's the other hard part or the conflicting thing about Star Wars is that I'm such a huge fan of the fundamentals of the original trilogy. We love the prequels. You and me talk about it all the time, Frank. I am not as much of a fan as the sequel trilogy, but there has been some really great Star Wars stuff in the last 5 years, and there has been some very mid stuff, and I got to agree with that. And I think that it is true. The thing with Star Wars, when it is mid, it's so much more noticeable because to your point, John, so many people know it. Like so many people know about the world and the universe and are kind of interested because it is Star Wars. It's not like just some other random sci-fi property. So I think that there's a higher bar for it. But with that being said, it's a place of honor. Like you have to show up and meet that bar. So a show recently that I think absolutely is hitting it and maybe surpassing it is Andor. But for me, Ahsoka was good. I really liked Ahsoka, but it was mid to me. And then I will say I disliked Acolyte, but not for the reasons why I think people were telling you to dislike Acolyte. I just think Acolyte was not really great storytelling. It wasn't very compelling. I didn't really care about the main characters the way I wanted it to. I thought it was very obvious that Chimera was the villain the whole time. Like there was just elements to it that, make me feel like Andor doesn't play down to you. It doesn't treat you like you're an idiot. It gives you a subtle piece of the information and lets you figure it out because it knows you're smart. The Acolyte was like, you're an idiot. Here, let me tell you who the bad guy is. See, he's bad. You're like, okay. So I think that there needs to be everything in Star Wars needs to match a certain level of quality, and it's kind of dipped and weaved. But when it's good, it's absolutely great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
I'll throw in too. I think that sometimes you're just not the audience, and
that's true
as a wider problem currently right now, we have a thing where we talk about it often as people who make content. I hate to say we're content creators, but literally that's what we're doing literally right now. And we would get more views on a video like this or a podcast like this if we were to say, oh, Star Wars is a problem and it's killing your kids or something like that. We would get more views on a clip like that. But instead, we're analyzing things in a way that we feel is most helpful. We're talking about the parts of Acolyte that are good and the parts of Acolyte that are bad. And we're watching the content and we're rewatching. I mean, every episode of Andor, you guys know how thick Andor is. I watch every one of them twice so that I get the most information. I write articles about them. I discuss it on a podcast with you. We talk about the little nuts and bolts. Acolyte's a great example. So I've got a couple things for each of these of what people have said wrong about them. Acolyte being too woke. They were review bombing it, but they also praised some of the new characters and the lightsaber action. I think the lightsaber action in Acolyte was very, very good. Yeah. But I do feel like they were trying to force certain characters on us that were just not very charismatic or fun. And was I the target audience for that show? Absolutely not. I definitely feel like that was the CW show of Star Wars. And we have friends on Threads who definitely embraced it in that sense. So I just think like I wasn't right for it. And I also think it wasn't well developed, but I watched it. I did my homework and I literally wrote fucking articles on that thing to explain what is good and bad about it. I didn't just go out there and say, don't watch it. There's girls, Yeah.
And I think that's fair. If you call yourself a Star Wars fan, you owe it to the franchise to give it a shot and watch it. If somebody says, oh yeah, you're not going to like it because it has X, Y, and Z, well, don't believe them because you liked everything else Star Wars. So go sit down and give it a shot. At least watch the first couple episodes and then make your own, determination. And you could tell your friends from there. If it was garbage, you have a reason to back what you're saying versus just like, oh, it was done because of this certain character or something like that.
Yeah. You're here. Well said.
Let's talk about the other two newer shows too. I want to make sure I brought up points about these two. So Skeleton Crew, a lot of people thought it was too kid friendly. And then it was like basically just Stranger Things in space. I remember with the marketing for that, I thought, hey, this is probably not going to be made for us. I'll watch it and we'll do our due diligence, but it's probably not meant for me. After watching it, I then realized, oh no, this is aiming to the kid in me, that it's bringing me back to the Goonies, bringing me back to the 80s. And so that was me giving it a shot when I thought I wouldn't like it and falling in love. And then to Andor, a lot of people say that it's not Star Warsy enough, and but critically it's acclaimed. And if you love good writing and extremely great complex storytelling, it's totally for you. Will you see a single lightsaber? Probably not. There's barely a Jedi in the whole damn thing, and the one you see is just a healer. So it's like, is it everything you want out of Star Wars? Probably not, but it's somebody's favorite Star Wars, and arguably maybe mine. And so I think that it's right for somebody.
Yeah, if they made 5 different series just like Andor at different timelines or something like that, I would watch every one of them. I mean, the writing and the set production. I mean, it's just the whole show is freaking amazing.
Yeah, I agree. Like Andor is like the Thunderbolts to me, where it is like a little dark, it's a little edgy, it's very well written and very well shot as well. And then like the Mandalorian and Ahsoka is like, like a Captain America. Like it's a good movie. It's not a great movie, but you're going to get some cool action. You're going to get some cool world building out of it. And, you're going to have some fun. And I think Star Wars is doing that right now. But man, yeah, Andor. Oh gosh, what a show though. I could take a bunch more shows like that, but it did have a slow start in season 1. I'll say that.
It did.
Mhm.
It invited you to sit down and pay attention, and that's something that maybe Ahsoka wouldn't do. I will now. I don't want to badmouth Ahsoka. I personally really enjoyed that series as an extension of Rebels, Clone Wars, prequels, because that's what it is. It's for, I think if you were to like say each show's aimed at somebody, that one's aimed at the prequel fans, just like I think The Mandalorian is made for those who love the old samurais and the old westerns. And you know, it's like, hey, that's perfect. I happen to be both those fans, so it worked out really well for me. But yeah. Let's talk a little bit about how nostalgia has got such a big impact on this thing. So the original trilogy, so many people, some especially like the older ones, are like, why are we not getting the original trilogy anymore? Well, first off, the original trilogy, if released today, you'd have complaints about it that you're not saying because it has nostalgia focused lenses on there. But you'd be complaining about other things too, like why is the Empire bad guys? They're bringing safety to the world or whatever, you know. And the prequels released with so much hate, but now are beloved, and a lot of that is because of the Clone Wars. And then the sequel trilogy, right now, a lot of people dislike them, but we talked about this with Mario Brothers when that movie came out. For a lot of kids, that's their Star Wars. And if we all decide to badmouth it and bash it and push it into oblivion, those kids that are fans go with them. And suddenly you lose Star Wars for the future. So it might not be for you, but it's best that we foster that fandom and let them grow and have their own heroes to follow.
It's true. That's such a good point. I also feel like all the new properties, at least as far as like the Mandalorian and Ahsoka goes, they're all trying to justify what happens in the sequel trilogies, like why Palpatine returned, why he was cloned,
Bad Batch did that,
you know, Bad Batch. Yeah, like it's all trying to explain the sequel trilogy. So, which also makes you feel like they weren't that good that they need all these other shows to explain it. But yes, you're right. There are some kids who are gonna love it. And yeah, it's so difficult as we get older. We see what the possibilities could be, where they went right when they could have went left, or they could have done this with this character. That first movie that came out, The Force Awakens, and Finn grabs that lightsaber, the blue lightsaber, and it starts hammering on Kylo Ren. You're like, oh my God, he's not trained, but he's gonna be a Jedi. And then it never happens, and you're like, what? And like, he's just nothing. He just like, I don't know, has a little girlfriend on a ship. Towards the end, you're like, wait, what? Why did we not, you know, like it would have been cool to explore that. So yeah, you know, I'm sure they'll age better as well, but it is, yeah, it's tough as we get older. I think it's like the expectations too with Star Wars will get bigger and bigger. I think Marvel hit it too right after Endgame. Everybody was like, we need Endgame. It's like, it's never gonna, you know what happens in comic books after a big crossover event? Like they start small again and have to rebuild.
Yeah, they drag ass for a little while there. Yeah,
totally. So you earn everybody teaming up, and yeah, we're just kind of in this building phase. And I don't know, I'm excited. I think Star Wars with the Mandalorian movie coming out, I think what Andor is doing is incredible. Give Tony Gilroy another series some point. How he makes us feel about rebellious characters who are just humans trying to survive is amazing. It's just like and we're getting even more and more Star Warsy, I think, in this show as the episodes have gone on. Do you agree?
As we get closer to Rogue One, yeah, I think they're starting to line up a little bit closer and closer. The fact that we just now have K2SO, it feels like a jump towards Star Wars. The fact that we had a Jedi healer jumps towards Star Wars more. So the mainline Star Wars. I want to commend you for when you're talking about the missed opportunity in the new trilogy, because that's how it should be discussed. Is, hey, this is something I saw in that I thought was wrong. Not that the entire thing is washed because it was all bad. No, there was definitely a missed opportunity. Again, Finn, I think, was a very missed opportunity character. Change of directors, I think, was a huge part of that with Rian Johnson coming in. But it doesn't mean that it's all gone. I mean, it was freaking dope to watch those fights. I think that last movie to me was probably the least exciting Star Wars movie, but the Kylo Ren and Rey fighting side by side against the Emperor's Guards might be one of the coolest Star Wars fights I've seen. Like, there can be good moments in what you would perceive as bad things.
Yep. Well said, man. Absolutely.
Let's get into the toxicity versus passion part of this, where we have a real hard time now where there's kind of this para relationship going on, or whatever it's called, where they feel like they're too attached to people. And we get actual harassment going on for these characters. Daisy Ridley had a hell of a time playing Rey. She actually just came out recently with, which is why I wanted to bring this entire thing up, really. She came out recently with an interview talking about how after the first movie, she felt so worthless as a person because people were just bad mouthing her. Oh, you don't deserve this, you know. And then, of course, we all know at the end when she calls herself a Skywalker, there's not a lot of us who are very happy with that move. But like this poor person is just an actor, you know, and did a very serviceable job for the role that was written for her. So I think there's a thing too where like back in the day, we all loved Harrison, like when the first trilogy came, we all loved Harrison Ford. We all loved Luke Skywalker. I can't imagine back in the 70s and early 80s, there were a lot of people that were like, well, Harrison Ford didn't do very good acting on this. I don't think that was the case. But now we overanalyze everything. I mean, that's kind of a problem that literally we're experiencing right now as us three are talking about it.
Yeah. I think there's also a level of access that we have now that makes that different too. It used to be these people are heroes. I mean, they're better than me. They're rich. They're celebrities. They're actors. I don't even get to walk on the same streets as them because they're special and I'm not. And now with the internet, I mean, you can do a cameo? You can, pay for some of your favorite actors to just say happy birthday or whatever. You can see them at conventions and, you follow them on social media and see where they're going to dinner that night and stuff like that. So it makes them very much more grounded and personable, but also some people take advantage of that and try to walk all over them and treat them like garbage for just doing their job that feeds their families.
Yeah. Yeah.
What can these fans and what can these studios do to address that?
I mean, just keep yourself more, I shouldn't put all the onus on the actor, but it's like, it makes sense why some of those actors are so private, where it's like, I wouldn't want to expose myself because people are going to think they can take everything from you and whatnot. But yeah, I wonder if I think media is shifting a little bit too, though, where we are seeing that they are people and actors who are coming out. There also used to be an arrogance about them too. Like if you look back at, Arnold Schwarzenegger or
Leonardo DiCaprio in his younger days was really bad about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he just acted like he was better than everybody. But I think to your point, John, it is harder to do that now because people can stick a camera in your face when you are coming out of the restaurant, or let's say you're too drunk at the bar and they can film you stumbling out, and so it's kind of us realizing that they are human. And then also like just people are terrible. Like you just, dicks to you on the internet just because they can, because they have anonymity from a screen. It's like, just be a good person. It's not that hard. You don't need to be an a-hole for no reason. But also like the actors, I think also are changing as well. That's why we get people like a Jack Quaid now or
Pedro Pascal. I think he's a lot more open about mental health issues and anxiety, which brings us to... It makes you feel more close to the actor than you did when it was like Leo back in the day, when you're just like, oh, he's handsome. Now it's like, oh, I have anxiety too sometimes. And like, it makes you feel like you're actually friends with them. And that's not healthy for what we have actually going on.
That's true, but it is relatable, and it used to not be relatable. And then now everything kind of has exposed more for good or bad, right? We now see that that all of our heroes weren't just that. They weren't just these amazing people or amazing actors or celebrities. Like, oh, wait, they were kind of a jerk. Oh, wait, they were kind of a dick to this person, and it does humanize them. But it also, I guess, opens the door for people to attack other celebrities as well. Yep. It's weird. I also find like that it's beyond just Hollywood, though. It's, we're getting that on, look at streamers are getting attacked or doxxed. Yeah, it just seems like even video game developers, I know Marvel's Avengers had his fair share of problems, but people were leaking some of the developers' addresses and stuff, and people were sending them death threats to their house. It's like, get over it. Like, they're not just, this is a whole team effort. There's a huge conglomerate deciding what to do with this game. And yes, we as fans may not like it, but it's not specifically that one person's problem. So, so I think it's just awareness kind of all around, and for us to realize like we're all humans on this journey and we just like should try to take care of each other maybe a little bit more. I don't know. It's cheesy, but I really maybe think that.
Yeah, I think we need to have legal protections. I mean, all these people, celebrities and, anybody in the street really should be able to walk down the street and feel safe that they're not going to be harassed or attacked or have a camera thrown in their face or whatever. It's like, why should we expect that a celebrity doesn't deserve the same amount of privacy as anybody else, So if it costs somebody, thousands of dollars in fines or legal fees or, whatever, because they're harassing somebody, and it becomes publicized and it's on the news like, oh my God, this guy, whatever, was harassing somebody for a character they played, and now he has to pay $10,000 or something. If you make it like, oh crap, I don't want to be in that situation, then people might think the terrible things and say it to their friends, but maybe not attack the celebrities themselves and, cause so much drama.
I just thought about something too. One of the things I think that makes Star Wars unique from the others is like Marvel. We like to compare Star Wars and Marvel a lot. They both have the same umbrella company. Marvel, when they add somebody to the cast, it's going to be a big name, somebody who already has kind of that shielding around them from being a celebrity. Mm-hmm. But Star Wars likes to foster new heroes that'll last for decades to come because they plan on making movies for decades to come. Mm-hmm. So they'll get a young actor like Daisy Ridley who doesn't have that media savvy training yet, or even like a Kylo Ren, Adam Driver, who is like, oh, he's known from Girls, but not real. And they'll take somebody like that and like, hey, we're going to make you a star and we're going to put you in the biggest IP that's ever existed. And so I think there's this thing where like at that point, Lucasfilm owes it to these actors to somewhat protect them and maybe even prepare them for what their new role will be. But if you take somebody who like RDJ, who was in every tabloid for drug use in the 90s, and like, hey, you're going to be Iron Man. He's like, yeah, no problem. I don't give a shit. Like, he's fine. I think there's also a little difference in how they cast because, and then like Star Trek, I like to compare things to Star Trek all the time. Star Trek will do the same thing Star Wars does, where it's like, hey, we're going to take you, you're going to have a career for the rest of your life going to conventions, and but the thing with the Star Wars community is we envelop you with like protection ourselves. Like there might be Star Trek. I know. Yeah. Why am I picking up two that have the same freaking name? Frank? So dumb.
But make it hard on yourself.
Right. But in Star Trek, like we might ask for change famously with Discovery. That's what happened. But it's never with like a lack of viewership or a lack of compassion. We're going to give you all of our attention. And we're going to give you as much help as we can in that process because we want better from you. And I think in Star Wars, it's a demand of cancellation. There are so many people who want Acolyte too. And we could have gone through Acolyte and said, like, these are things we want better. Maybe next season you guys could address them. Instead, it was like, nope, put some heads on the spikes. We never want to see this again. And who wins in that? Definitely not the viewers and definitely not the actors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a good point, man. Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's so many elements to it. And a lot of it, I think we just have to have some personal responsibility as well, just, realize we're all people here and hey, and like what you said earlier, Frank, like not everything is going to be for you. And that seems like such a foreign concept for people when they would only have like one movie every 3 years. And they're like, well, it has to be for me because this is all I get. But now it's like, we get so much. It's like, they can branch out, which I guess can be a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah, that's really well said, though, because I think the best place to go is comic books for that example, because if you were let's say a Batman, I think is even better. If you're a Batman fan, there were different versions of Batman comics depending on what you liked. If you like the detective kind, you go read Detective Comics. Or if you like the Bat Family, it's Detective Comics. Or if you like, and because we had so much content coming out that was possible, and I think we are not yet adjusted to that in video form, to where we have to like, hey, not everything's for you. And so I like where you were saying we have to take the onus onto ourselves. I don't know if I said that right, but but we need to kind of give them a shot. And I personally feel one of my biggest things is that we need to understand that it might not be for you and it might be for the next generation. And if we don't foster that fandom and like let them explore why they love this show or movie, they'll be gone and that fandom will disappear with them. So I think in general, Star Wars specifically, because it has the most toxic fandom, and there's a lot of people who that's their entire livelihood is talking shit about Star Wars. Let's back off and let's just welcome and make a bigger community if we can. That's how Geek Freaks works in a whole. And that's how the Star Wars fandom should work as well.
You're here.